How's everyone doing? Thanks for joining me on my small engine repair channel. Today's project is this Exmark commercial grade lawnmower. It's a landscaper customer of mine brought this in. He said he tried to get it started in the springtime here and it won't start. He just bought it last year for a few $1,000. So obviously he needs to get this thing running. So we're going to take a look at it for him and see what we can find out. Alright guys, so I'll be honest, I haven't worked on one of these Exmarks, Kawasaki engine on it, and I'm just going to go through my basic troubleshooting for a no start condition. First thing I'm going to do is check the oil. I always check the oil to make sure that there's a decent amount of oil in this thing, and it looks good, nice and clean actually as well. Next thing I'll check is see if there's any fuel in it. Now I forgot to ask him if he put new fuel in it or he left fuel in from last year, and as you can see there is some fuel. If I do a sniff test, it doesn't smell too bad, honestly. All right. Again, not too sure if the fuel shutoff valve was left in the open position all winter long, but if so, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be a carburetor issue on this thing. Here's your carburetor. Air filter. Doesn't look too bad. Pre-filter could use a little cleaning, but that's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to leave that off for testing purposes. Looks like we have a choke position and then a run position and stop. So we're going to leave it in the choke position. Fuel's on. I don't see any primer system. This is something extra you're going to get with a commercial grade mower. It's a oil filter. I don't see that very often on these small push mowers. So yeah, I don't see a primer system, so let's just try and fire it up, see what we get. Alright, so that was probably just a matter of, I don't know, it looked like there was lots of fuel in the intake here that is going into the carburetor, and I believe it was flooded in the beginning there. You could see all the black smoke and then even the white smoke after after it started. That was an indication that it was flooded. So I don't know if you just flooded it. I'm going to try it again. I don't know if I'm going to need the choke, but It's definitely running probably a little bit lean, so I think what I might do is take the carb off. I'm going to service this mower anyways. So I'm going to take the carb off, run it through my ultrasonic cleaner, and then drain out all the fuel that's in there. At least drain a sample of it, see how bad it is. If it's bad, then I'll just take it all out and put some new stuff in. We'll change the oil filter, we'll sharpen the blade, lubricate all the cables and wheel adjusters, and then clean it all up. I'll service the spark plug and the air filter as well. If it needs to be replaced, I'll replace those. So, alright, so I got you up on my lawnmower stand here. I'm going to first off start this tune-up with taking apart this carburetor. So what I want to do is shut the fuel valve off here. I'm going to take this air filter assembly off. Okay, and here it looks like two 10 mil. Alright, and there's another, it looks a little bigger, maybe a 12. Maybe not. No, it just looked bigger. This one looks like a bolt. And it looks like we might have to take this whole throttle assembly off here just to get at that. Alright. So I don't want to mess around with this throttle linkage there. I might actually take a few pictures of all these linkages just to make sure I know how they go back. So now this should in theory just slide off here. I don't see anything else holding it on. Oh, yeah, I guess there is. Alright, so just look back here. And it looks like some sort of a breather tube here. So we're going to have to take that off first. Looks like the tube itself is the rubber tube is kind of stuck. There we go. Just had to loosen it off a little bit. Alright, so that go there. Now we got a good shot here at the carburetor, so we can kind of figure out how it is we're going to get all these linkages off here. So you got a choke linkage and some throttle linkage back here. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take a quick second to see how all of this stuff hooks up and where it hooks up. So it looks like this sort of choke return spring connects to this lever here on the bottom side. All right, and the actual lever itself also hooks to the far end of that. I've got my finger right on it there. All right, and then this throttle linkage kind of got some weird bends to it. It comes down this way. Again, there is a throttle return spring, and it comes over here to this arm. So I'm going to take the fuel line off first, and then we're going to work on seeing how we're going to be able to twist and contort this to try and get this off. So I do anticipate a little bit of fuel coming out from this fuel line. Alright, so this one's looks like it might slide off fairly easily. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Well, it looks like I can pull the whole thing right off, and now I can start working on trying to get some of these linkages off. So first one I'm going to try and get is this choke linkage here. Definitely dripping some fuel out of the carburetor itself. Well, maybe I'll get this little return spring off first. And alright, so the back linkage is off. Alright, I was able to get the rod off first, and then this return spring. Here we go. Alright, so first things first, we're going to try and get this little 10 mil bolt off the bottom here. We'll take the float bowl off. Doesn't look too bad. A little bit of sediment, a little bit of debris down in there. Okay. Float is okay. Down in here is your main jet and probably your emulsion tube as well. This float pin seems to be pretty stuck in there. Alright, well, before I get going too far with that, trying to mess with the float, this thing's only a year old. I'm going to hook up my pressure tester to it and see if the needle and seat are in good shape. So with the carb upside down like this, then the needle should be able to hold the pressure that I pump into it. If it isn't, then it's not making a good seal. And I don't know if you can see that, but the pressure is holding steady. If I were to release the pressure by lifting up on this float and therefore raising the needle, it relaxes the pressure, or the pressure gets removed. So that's a good needle and seat. If you don't have that, you can wipe this off as best you can, this inlet, and then blow on it. And if you hear air coming out through the needle and seat, then you're going to have to replace the needle and seat. So I am not going to do that. I think this one's just going to be a quick carb clean. And what you need then now is a flathead screwdriver without a shank, with a straight shank here. And you need to put that in and push down on the flathead. Basically the groove that's cut into the top of this brass jet. You have to push down as you're turning because you don't want to strip this. So it's imperative you use a screwdriver that's big enough as well. When I say big enough, I mean thick enough and wide enough. Okay, so that it fits nicely into that slot. If you pick one that's too small, good chance you're going to strip that and you won't ever get it out, and you probably have to buy a new carb. Now, hopefully you can see there is a hole that goes straight through there. Okay, that's a jetted hole that meters how much fuel goes up through there. So you want to make sure that that hole is nice and clear. All right, so what you're going to do is get yourself a piece of bread tie or wire or something like that that will fit through that hole, and then just make sure it's nice and cleared out. Okay, I'm also going to spray some carb cleaner through there at a later time. If I shake that, the emulsion tube then comes out, and then you're going to want to do the same thing with all of these little holes right here. Make sure that none of these holes or passageways are clogged. Now these ones typically are a little bit smaller in diameter, so a lot of times, well, Okay, well, this bread tie seems to be an okay size to fit through there. Sometimes they're so small you can't even fit one of these bread ties through. So just make your way through all of these holes. Make sure they're all clean. Typically, if I'm going to see a problem, it's not usually on the emulsion tube. It's more so on the it's going to be more so be on the main jet area. That usually gets clogged more so. All right, so that's all clean. Again, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I spray that with some carb spray afterwards. Okay. Now, sometimes these things have an idle jet. This idle jet is down probably in here. It's not accessible, so you can't clean that out, but it would be through this hole right here. So again, another good idea, stick your bread tie through that. It doesn't go through all the way through the carburetor. So just trying to, and there's another hole right here. So anywhere there's a little hole, you're gonna make sure that that's clear. All right, with the bread tie, and then spray it all with carb spray. Now when you do spray with carb spray, do not spray any rubber parts, any rubber tipped needle valves or this rubber seal. So make sure that that's up and out of the way. Sometimes the rubber gasket will stay here. All right, your bowl gasket stays on there. So just pick that off, move that off to the side. Make sure you do not spray that with carb spray, because it will actually cause that to swell up, and then it won't be usable anymore. So this one's fairly simplistic. Okay, just spraying in here, spraying through here. Spray the outside a little bit. I'm gonna spray through the idle jet. And then this other guy here as well. I'll open it up. Just the choke. Spray all through in there. Okay. So basically, just giving it a good bath with my carb spray. Do the same thing with the emulsion tube. Okay. And then lastly the main jet as well. Make sure this is all nice and clean. All right. If you have an ultrasonic cleaner, you can throw all these parts in an ultrasonic cleaner for about 15 minutes, and that should help clean out a lot of those little small passageways as well. Okay. So then once this is all sprayed down, I'm just going to spray it with some compressed air and clean this all up before I put it back together. All right, to service this air filter, some of them are, I mean, these paper things are not serviceable. The only thing you can do is to blow them out with an air gun. If they're too bad, or if they've got oily residue or fuel residue or water, any sort of liquid residue, then you're just going to want to replace this. But this one's actually in really nice shape. The pre-cleaner is just a little foam thing. I'm going to actually blow these out, and we're going to reuse these ones. All right, so that's been serviced. So before we go too much further with changing the oil and all the rest of it, sharpening the blade and stuff, I just want to make sure it's running properly. So I like to warm up that oil. So I'm going to take it outside and run it now for a few minutes just to make sure everything is good with our carb clean. All right, so got some fresh fuel in there, and it's been flowing for a few minutes with the valve open. Throw it on choke, see what we get. Alright guys, so everything's back together now. I just have to clean it up a little bit. I've scraped the underside of the deck, all the grass cakes underneath there. I sharpened the blades, serviced the spark plug. I lubricated the starter recoil, lubricated all the cables, and changed the oil, changed the oil filter. And so this thing should be good to go. And hopefully this was informative. If you've got a machine like this, maybe this will help you out. And if you like this sort of stuff, please consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, guys, till our next project, take care.